Hi, I am Dr. Jen, and this is Eat Your Damn Food, a conscious path to healing your food and body struggles. And I have a very wonderful guest on today. This is Joanne Kane. And Joanne and I have now been working together for many years. She's our holistic life practitioner on the food and body team. She is the owner of a beautiful yoga studio that I'm going to get to visit in November. I'm very excited about that. And she is a wife, a mother of two wonderful, beautiful daughters. And she is also a friend of mine. So, Joanne, welcome.
Thank you, Dr. Jen. Wow. I feel so honored and privileged to be here.
So, Joanne, you and I kind of go way back. And, there was a time where you and I were having conversations like this when during the pandemic, we decided to do a yoga class together with you teaching, and we were going to have this conversation in the beginning. And it feels very like the good old times when we did this week after week, right?
Sure does. Yeah. Those were some really interesting times, but great conversations we've had.
Yes, yes. So today, what I want to talk about is trying to understand or conceptualize these food and body struggles, disordered eating, eating disorders as really being like spiritual problems. And I know some people hear that word and they're like, well, what does that mean? It's a spiritual problem, right? Like, I remember a colleague that I worked with at the treatment center where I started off. She used to say that, like, these things should not have been called eating disorders. They should have been called emotional disorders, right? Because so much of the struggles around eating disorders is really having to deal with these painful emotions, right? And these eating disorders start out of like struggling with very painful, sometimes traumatic events. So I know when I started Fab, I really had like Joanne, you were going to be one of the people on the team because I really do sort of conceptualize these as, yes, on one hand, they're physical, they're emotional, like my colleague Susan Kleinman used to say, but they do seem to have like this potentially like spiritual piece to them. And what are your thoughts about that? I know that's like a big question to start off with, but in the work you're doing so intimately with our clients, it's like you are seeing that, like, right? Like there is kind of this something deeper than just, okay, I'm struggling with my weight, or not saying that that's not important, or I'm struggling with my food. But when you go deeper, like there is something else there.
It is a really big question, and I guess the question really is what is spirit?
Mm,
What is spirituality?
mm,
What is soul? And I think that in my work, the one of the first things that I like to teach the participants, and I do say teach,
mm,
is to help them see that they're not just their body, right? And I think the other piece that I didn't just say was there's a disconnect
mm,
to spirit, to
mm,
spirituality, to themselves. And spirit is just one aspect of ourselves. So when I say, oh, I teach them to realize they're not just their body, okay, they are their body, their mind, their emotions, or their heart, their spirit, right? And again, maybe that's the original question. I'll get to that in a second. And they are their breath. The breath is the bridge of consciousness that brings all of that together.
mm,
And what I see in a lot of these clients is there's a complete disconnection to all of that as a
mm,
totality and as a
mm,
whole, which is probably the way that we came up with my title was the holistic, right?
mm.
WHOLE. There's a disconnect to their whole being.
Mm, you said that so well. And Joanne, I know in the beginning you sometimes had a harder time like describing kind of your role, but I think you just described the work that you do, and maybe people listening are like, gosh, how do I start connecting all those pieces, right? I had one of our the clients we work with in Fab in my office, and she said, Dr. Jem, for the first time, I'm starting to feel like a whole human being. And I've never felt like all the pieces were finally coming together and I'm feeling that level of wholeness. And, with that sense of wholeness, you could see the joy she was starting to experience. So some people listening might be like, and how do you do that? How do you start bringing all these disconnected parts together?
Yeah, that's where the work is, right?
Mm,
How do you bring those disconnected parts together? It's through awareness, consciousness, right? Knowing like and presencing yourself to what is going on in each and every moment. I think
mm,
that's the other thing with the participants. They get so caught up in the
mm,
nuances of the eating disorder, right? They become almost so like heady about it that
mm,
they don't even have the capacity to listen to their body or listen to their heart where the emotions lie and your spirit lies. They can't. They're so
mm,
boxed in.
mm,
And
mhm,
I think what I help them do is start to separate everything.
mm,
And we use, or I use, the different experiences that they have in their life day to day to help show them, okay, this is where you were disconnected. How would you see yourself connecting or developing a consciousness to that experience? Right. So a reframing too
mhm,
of their mind and their thinking so that they can clear up the space to develop this
mm.
awareness that I'm talking about.
Wow. I mean, we are talking about not an easy topic to put into words and language, right? Or to make sense of. And again, if I was starting off on this path of spirituality, I might be like, and again, how do I start developing that awareness? So for people who are listening and they may want just a more like a place to start, like a simple practice of like, I want to start developing more of my consciousness, more of my awareness, like you were saying, like day to day, moment by moment. Is there something you might recommend that you do for yourself? Or maybe it's something you recommend with clients that you're beginning to work with, or the clients in your studio as well?
Yeah, I would say the first thing is slow down. It seems so simple, but we live in such a quick,
Mm.
fast-paced society, right? What's the next thing? Productivity. Got to get this done. You have to slow down.
Mm,
The next thing is after you slow down, awareness of breath. Remember, breath is the bridge of consciousness. It's what brings us to this
mm,
awareness of our body, of our mind, because we when we're breathing, and I'm saying, focus on your inhale, focus on
mhm,
your exhale. It gives your mind something else to focus on other than your its thoughts, right? And then when I connect it to the body, put your hands one on the lower belly, one on the chest. Where are
mm,
you breathing? Right
mm.
hand moving more, left hand moving more.
So even something as simple as this right now, somebody listening, and I have to say, as soon as you said slow down, I don't know if you saw what I just instinctively did. I took like this big inhale and this exhale, and I'm like, oh, I finally landed because I was also switching gears kind of quickly, right? And so just like, okay, so step one is starting to slow down because it's hard to be aware if you're moving so fast through the world, right? It's like, and everything in our culture kind of has us doing that fast thing, myself included. So like as soon as I did that breath, I was like, hi Joanne, I'm here. Like I've really
Here
landed, right? Okay, so then we're going to put a hand. This is a
on the
simple
chest,
practice.
right,
And
one
then
hand on
maybe
the lower belly.
one.
And then what the observation or the awareness is as you take a breath in, just notice which hand moves more. Is it
Hmm,
your right hand or your
yeah,
left hand?
yeah,
Right? Okay, so for example, if you said to me, "Oh, my bottom hand moved more when I took the breath in," I would say, "Wonderful. You're breathing into your lower belly." Right? So you're making a connection with the breath to your body, and
mhm,
your mind is going, "Oh, I don't have to think about all the 1,000,000 thoughts that are running through my mind," which, by the way, is its job. But I
right.
call it a lunch break for the thoughts. You need
Mm,
to take a lunch break for your thoughts, and just doing this right, redirects that focal point.
Mhm.
And I think the other thing that I wanted to mention when it comes to spirituality, a lot of people get scared. It's like woo-woo-y. It's
Yeah.
like, "Oh, I don't believe in a higher power." Spirit and spirituality is not about that. You can
Mm,
believe in whatever it is that you wanna believe in or not believe in, right? It's all acceptable. The spirit and spirituality is the ability to tap into your own journey, the place that where you are struggling, where your
mm,
spirit wants more freedom and it's not getting it because you're tied up in recovery or in the ED. Right?
mm,
So giving yourself the space to be able to listen to that. Like I feel really am feeling stuck. I'm not happy with where my life is. Can you give yourself the permission and the opportunity to listen to that voice of the spirit?
mm,
Spirit's
mm,
trying to call out. Is there something better than where
mm,
you're at?
mm.
Yes, there is.
Yeah. I do think that the struggle with the eating disorder can be the doorway in, right? Through the pain and leaning into that pain and feeling that pain, right? To say we want something better, like, I don't like how this feels. I feel uncomfortable, right? I feel unhappy, right? Most people aren't coming into our offices saying, I want to gain weight. Nobody's saying that, right? Or I want to even totally get rid of this eating disorder because it's been such a way of coping. But I do see that this eating disorder, this path through the eating disorder really can be such the spiritual journey to transformation. And not only just like transforming your relationship with food, with body, yes. And it's like really growing ourselves as a human being. Like something I'm always amazed with, and we've seen this now countless times, is when somebody is really on this path, this path of recovery, moving through the eating disorder, it's like they evolve so much as human beings, right? Like age wise, they may seem like a certain age, but like the wisdom that can come from this work. And that's also really what we're about in this program. Like it is we do see it as a deep dive, I think.
Yeah, and growth opportunity, a maturation process, and an evolution of one's being, like who
Yeah.
you are when I think we can say the people that come in that first month, first 2 months, to the ones that leave a year, some of them a year and a half, 2 years,
Hmm.
they are different people. They're different beings.
Yeah.
Because they've elevated themselves, they've matured, and they've grown, to your point, through the pain and the suffering and the challenges, but that was there for them so that they could have that experience. And
Yeah.
I think that's what spirituality is, right? It's the practice of accepting where you at and knowing that it's okay that you are where you are and that tapping into all these levels of your being and being open and receptive, right? Not
Hmm.
fighting the fight, but
Hmm.
just opening yourself up. That's what spirituality is. Like
Hmm.
giving yourself that space and ability to let your spirit find the joyful and fulfilling life.
I had somebody I was working with today, and we were meeting with her, myself and her nutritionist, and, really talking about like she's struggling to a degree. Like, on one hand, she's doing super well in her life, but she can see she a little bit took her eye off of her recovery. It went sort of lower down on the totem pole of everything she's dealing with. And I could see, at first she was just like really frustrated, like, oh, I'm going through, another cycle, right? Because I think this recovery journey and the process of evolving our souls, it is cycles, right? Like I would like to be like all of a sudden you're on this cycle and you stay there. But it's just not how it works, right? Like it's just not how life works. That's not how recovery works. And then in her wisdom, because she's, been on this journey now for a bit with us, she was like, you know, I really kind of wish I wasn't here, but during the times I've struggled, I've really learned the most. And I was like, totally. And like, if you think for yourself,